Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the CTB podcast, our video podcast series for the commercial tyre sector. Today we have the pleasure of welcoming Ben Rosenblum to the podcast. Now, Ben is employed by Bridgestone Americas as Vice President of Strategy and Business Transformation. Since 2023, however, he has been based in Amsterdam in the Netherlands and is responsible for the revitalisation of Bridgestone's Bandag retreading brand in the European market. Now, anyone with a knowledge of the European retreading market knows that the position of the Bandag brand has become less prevalent in recent years for a whole variety of reasons. So we're extremely interested to hear what Ben has to say about how Bridgestone plans to put this iconic brand back where it belongs and what that means in terms of optimised products and services for fleet operators. So let's go over and listen to that interview right now. Well, good afternoon, Ben, and many thanks for joining us today on our podcast. It's a while since we've been able to talk to Bridgestone in depth about the Bandag business, and so we're really looking forward to hearing your views on how you plan to redevelop the brand in the European market.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Not at all. So, look, in order to set the scene, perhaps we can start by discussing what's happened to Bandag in Europe over the last 19 years or so since Bridgestone acquired the business. And why do you think the brand needs reinventing? So many market observers will have a good idea about this, but this is the first time that someone from Bridgestone has stood up to address this issue. So I think it's an important point to start from.
Sure. Again, thank you for having me. I think it's a great question. For context, the European market is extremely challenging right now for everybody, for all the legacy new tire manufacturers, for everybody who has production in Europe. It's been a stable decline for many years of the premium business and of the retread business with the growth of low-cost import tires. And I think the reality is Bridgestone realizes that the future of Bridgestone in the commercial space and the future of our dealer network really depends on a strong retreading business. Certainly, we have a lot of experience, particularly in the US, and that business is stable and it is strong. And Europe is frankly much more challenging, and it's a much more fragmented market. And we think there's a lot of opportunity to improve the tire business in Europe by leveraging what we've learned in North America. So really, the time is right. We think the sustainability push is very, very critical right now. And the reality is we think this is the best way to maintain our share and grow our share and really push back on the growth of what we call disposable tires, one and done tires that are imported from Asia, Middle East, or elsewhere.
Absolutely. So during our preparation for this meeting, you stated that Bandag's number one customer should be the dealer, and a key role for Bandag should be to teach the dealer how to make the fleet their number one customer. Yeah, you pointed out that this is a major departure from how Europe has thought about Bandag for years. In that the dealer is not actually a competitor, they're a partner. This, of course, is a really big statement. So perhaps you could expand on it a bit.
Absolutely. So, typically when we think of Bandag, it's a three-legged stool. It's the fleet, it's the dealer, and it's Bridgestone. And really, the core of Bandag isn't just the rubber that we use. It's really about efficiency. We want our dealers to be incredibly efficient in everything they do, in terms of how they produce the retread, in terms of how they track their casings and their assets, in terms of picking up casings, in terms of delivering retreads, delivering new tires. If a dealer isn't working in a hyper-efficient way, it's nearly impossible for us to serve the fleet efficiently. And Bandag, when it works well with our dealers, it's not about high margins, it's about volume and scale. It's about keeping your retread factory full. It's about keeping your trucks full. It's about knowing where the casings are when you need them. In the future state, it's about knowing which tires need to be removed from the vehicle, right? And so what we see is there's an enormous amount of waste in the tire industry. It's just the reality. And our job is to work with dealers to reduce that so that we can serve fleets the most efficiently possible. And when we do that, the benefit to the dealer, the more efficient the dealer is helping us with the fleet business, the more local business he can win. It's all about scale and efficiency. And the lower my dealer cost is, the more fleet business I can win with him. The more fleet business I win with him, the lower his costs get. And it becomes a virtuous cycle of scale and efficiency. So at the end of the day, we can't be successful without fleets, and we can't win fleets without great dealers. So that's the three-legged stool that we talk about. And I think that the legacy of Bandag, I should say, since our foundation, is working to build great dealers. And I think we have a great history of that, even in Europe, but we've gotten away from it, and we need to get back to it.
Fair enough. Okay, so yeah, look, this is the first time that Bridgestone has talked to us about this plan to reinvent the Bandag brand in Europe. But our impression that this plan may have been initiated a while back, at least since the decision to close the Lanclar production facility. So could you please give us a bit of a timeline on how this strategy has been developed?
Yeah, I can't go into all of the details, but ultimately, I I was asked by our West CEO, Scott Damon. So Scott Damon is responsible for North America, South America, Europe, Middle East. His first day on the job wasn't for Bridgestone, it was for Bandag, building Bandag retreads. That's how he learned the trade. And he's now our CEO. So I think that gives some context to how important this business is to us. And about 3 years ago, um, basically, I was told, Ben, let's figure out how we can make Europe, reach its potential and how we can turn it around. The reality is, Lanclar, of course, we had high costs. You can imagine there's no way around it. It's a factory in a high cost country that was underutilized with the decline of business. And so that was one consideration. And the other consideration is that, we tell people retreads can be as good or new as new tires. And the reality is we have a lot of retreads that last longer than almost any new tire. Not always, it depends. But in certain applications, our retreads absolutely outperform new tires. And we test thousands of them a year. So ultimately, the closure of Lanclar was about efficiency. It was about asset utilization for us, filling our new tire factory in Poland, where we have an absolute state-of-the-art production facility. So again, it comes down to efficiency for us and cost. And realistically, the other big benefit of the move to Poland is that we can use every new tire capability we choose. So we can do cap-based compounding, different base compounding than the cap, which has some benefits. We have tandem mixing, basically anything you can do with our new tires, which we like to think are the best in the world, if not among the best in the world. We can now do with retreading.
Okay, so can you please outline the new business model that you have in mind? How do you plan to build lasting business with your fleet customers, and what package of services and technology do you envisage using to create this model?
Yeah, it's a great question. What I find is actually fleet turnover in Europe is a lot more regular. So fleets will be with a tire business or a dealer for 2 years or 3 years, and then it rotates quite a bit. We develop much, much deeper relationships with them in North America. And we do that through a couple of things. One is we have very deep relationships with our dealers. They use not just our retreading process, they use our IT systems like BASys. Um, they use our financial models. We teach them how to do business. But then at the fleet, there's a lot of tools, a lot of digital tools that we use with our dealers that help us track performance, that track KPIs, and really drive continuous improvement. So with things like BASys, we know where every asset is of that fleet. I know where every casing is of that fleet, even if it goes across multiple dealers. We use that to help the fleets be more efficient. We actually bring a lot of best practices to the fleet with our dealer. We regularly ask the fleet how they're feeling, how the service levels are. And so we really just build a very deep kind of continuous improvement type of relationship with them. And it pays dividends. Um, the fleet can no longer just say, hey, this other competitor offered me a 20 € discount. Well, are they tracking your cost per kilometer? Are they tracking your pull point? Do you know where your assets are? And the last point I'll make, the most important KPI we have for the biggest fleets in the world, fleets that have 50, 60, 100,000 vehicles, the most important KPI is how many times you're retreading every casing. So when we can bring those KPIs to them, it's very, very hard for them to change because they don't really know what they're getting when they leave Bandag. I think the same can be applied here. If you bring great service levels, great dealers, and great KPIs, continuous improvement to the fleet, it's very difficult for them to leave you.
Okay, so my next question relates to the impression that Bandag gives to its dealers, or has done historically. So the question is, what are you planning to say to existing dealers and prospective dealers to persuade them that they will be treated as, indispensable key partners going forward? So, as I'm sure you'll be aware, a number of dealers in the past have stated that they felt they weren't getting anything from the partnership with Bandag and weren't receiving much in the way of Bridgestone fleet business, as part of that arrangement. So, how could be dealers be sure that this will change?
Well, I mean, I think, look, we can say anything we want, and I'm not sure how much weight that carries with the dealers. And I
Yeah.
think for dealers who we've lost, and there's clearly a number of dealers we've lost that some of them we're okay with, maybe wasn't the right partnership, but we've also lost good dealers. There's no question. Um, if you look at our legacy, when we actually put our minds to it, uh, the majority of the biggest dealers in the world either are Bandag or were Bandag. Um, so we know how to do it. Now, the proof is in the pudding, right? So,
Yeah.
in terms of fleet business, as an example, we have to show them. We have to work with them to bring them fleet business. And I think a really important point is that I don't care if the fleet business is on our books as Bridgestone or if it's on the dealer books. That's actually just a credit issue, right? It doesn't help me if they're on my books. I just want to be sure they're using a Bridgestone and a Bandag and that they're happy and loyal. And the last point I just want to make on that is that the most efficient business model runs through a local dealer because it's somebody who's driving their truck and they're doing 5 stops at the local small fleets before they get to the Bridgestone fleet, which means their truck is full on the way out and their truck is full on the way back. And that requires a local dealer to do it well. And local dealers tend to give the best service because they know these fleets, they live in the community with them. So, what I would say is that we have a legacy of success working with great local dealers. It's the model that works the best. Europe has a lot of company-owned distribution from Bridgestone, from Michelin, from Continental, from others. We think the dealer model, it doesn't mean we're getting away from company-owned. We have some very good company-owned assets, undoubtedly. But generally speaking, a great local dealer operating at high efficiency can't be beat.
Cool. Okay. So when we start talking about the Bandag independent Bandag network, what's your aims and strategy for re-establishing and developing this network in Europe?
I would say it's one by one.
Yeah.
Um, we have an interesting, I would say, a different offer, right? Because we can bring new tire, we can bring IT systems that are very much valued by the dealer, like our BASys system, which is it's the lifeblood of how we operate with fleets, and it's the lifeblood of our dealers. That's a production system, but also a fleet management tool. So we bring the new tires, we bring BASys, we can bring fleet business, we bring benchmarking tools. We call it the Bandag financial model, right? We have very clear benchmarks for how our dealers should operate. And realistically, we have to earn the business back. It's that simple. I think our value proposition is dramatically improved. If you also layer on top of that the fact that we can now produce what we call Dantotsu product, we can really produce the best product in the world now. I think we have a great value proposition, and we have to prove to dealers that it's worth it to come back to Bandag.
So whilst preparing for this meeting, you mentioned the need to transcend retreads as a product. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, it's really pretty simple. Putting rubber on a tire is a very, very difficult business. And when the Bandag model is properly applied, our large dealers do over 1 billion in turnover a year in the US and North America. The majority of retreaders in North America are no longer in business. They've either sold their business to a competitor or they've left the business. It's not an easy business. But when you do it right and you really integrate everything we talked about, new tire, service business, ideally things like emergency roadside business, you can create a really, really compelling service offer. And so what I would say is, I tell people Bandag is a logistics business. We help serve fleets through our dealers as efficiently as humanly possible. And to do that, you need a new tire solution, you need a retread solution, you need a service solution, you need IT that ties everything together. So the production of the retread is still the heart of what we do. But the reality is, if somebody's business is just putting rubber on a tire, we'd love to work with them. We'd love to make their production as efficient as possible. But we think for the future success of the retread business model, it has to be more than rubber on a tire. It has to be integrated into a very, very, very efficient go-to-market, essentially.
Okay, as we've already discussed, you also mentioned the need to make the fleet the number one customer. So in the US, you talk about a significant market share for the Bandag brand amongst fleets, which of course historically it's always had. So how can this be replicated in Europe, or is this an unreasonable goal given the fact that Mocure in some European markets has a much higher share than it does in the US?
So Europe, the fleets are smaller than the US, but there are still enough fleets to make it very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, my view is every fleet has their own opinion, and they certainly have their own opinion of retreads. Um, but we have a lot of case studies, again, from fleets that buy. Look, our large fleets typically buy between 2 and 5 retreads for every new tire in the US and in Canada. And the same is true in many other markets as well. Brazil, South Africa, very, very strong markets for us. So we know what best practices look like, and we know we can convince fleets that they can have a lower operating cost, the same reliability, and better sustainability if they actually invest in the Bandag system. In a world where a fleet just wants cheap and easy and they don't want to put in the effort, now it's difficult for us. If they really want the lowest total operating cost and they want sustainability on top, we think we have a great solution. I would add one more comment to that, which is there are challenges of Europe. Like in the US, we essentially have the same tire size, steer, drive, and trailer. Europe doesn't have that.
Mm.
These things make life a little bit more complicated in Europe. So I don't know that we can ever get to the 4 retreads for every new tire ratio, but I certainly think we can do better than we do today.
Yeah, absolutely. So my next question is how you plan to integrate the retread offering with the various fleet management tools offered by Bridgestone.
The various what was it?
Various fleet management tools that you offer to
Yeah, I
fleets.
mean, already Retread is fully integrated into our fleet offer. Again, as I mentioned, most of our largest fleet customers buy more retreads than they do new tires. So it's already fully integrated. BASys, again, is the foundation of our offer. So when we want to, for example, work with a fleet on a common metric we use in the US is tire cost per engine hour. So on a garbage fleet, great example for retreading. Garbage fleets are a waste, refuse, garbage, any number of names we can apply. It's a fantastic market for retreading because they don't go very fast and they frankly destroy tires very, very quickly, very high scrub, very difficult operating environment. We measure tire cost per engine hour. So it's not tire cost per kilometer because every garbage truck has a very different route. So 1 kilometer on one route is not the same as 1 kilometer on another. We measure tire cost per engine hour. That essentially requires that our BASys tool is fully integrated. We're actually pulling data off of their trucks as well, meshing the two, and coming up with our tire cost per engine hour. So the reality is Bandag is fully integrated into our fleet solution already.
Okay, so my last question relates to how fleets perceive the Bandag brand. What I wanted to ask was, what would you like to say to fleets who know the Bandag brand from its historical position in the market, but have seen the brand's influence diminish in Europe over the years? How do you persuade these fleets that Bandag is back?
Yeah, look, as I mentioned, our product comes from the same factory as our new tire. We're fully committed to the success of this business model. Um, and I would say, give us a chance. Let us speak to you about our case studies. Let us speak to you about what we do with literally the biggest fleets in the world. And I wouldn't promise we can get there day one, right? A great tire program is a team effort. So it's difficult when a fleet comes to you and they say, I have a quote next month, give me your best price. I can promise you that is not going to yield the lowest cost. They'll get the cheapest tire. They will not get the lowest cost. The lowest cost comes from really having a relationship with us and with our dealers. It comes from maximizing the pull point, limiting irregular wear, maximizing the number of retreads, all of these things. So I would say give us a chance and give our dealers a chance to come speak with you and teach you about what we're capable of. And then let's give it a try. Let's give it a period of time and let's test your tire cost, whatever metric you need, but your overall tire cost, let's see if we can improve it. And if we can't, I guess we go out to bid again.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks very much for your time today, Ben, and for the fascinating insights into how you plan to revitalise this famous brand that you have in Europe. We certainly wish you luck with that, and we look forward to welcoming you back on our podcast in the coming months for an update on how things are going.
My pleasure, David. Thank you for having me.
Well, that concludes our interview with Ben Rosenblum. We hope you found it interesting. Many thanks for joining us, and please join us again soon for another edition of the CTB podcast. Until then, goodbye.